No, yeah, Damon, I know Arizona is the best of the best, but today we're trying to figure out who's the best of the rest.
Welcome on into the AZ Wildcats podcast, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by our friends over at Circle K. I am your host, Damon Fairall, aka Damon Dog. He is my co-host, Kevin Thomas, aka Kevo Post. We are the AZ Wildcats podcast, coming to you live from PHNX HQ3 here in downtown Phoenix. But first off, I gotta say, we are sponsored by our friends over at Branded Bills. You of course, see me and Kevin both rocking Branded Bills damn near every single day on this podcast, and it's for good reason. The campus collection, the customization options, you name it, Branded Bills has the best headwear in the game. Premium headwear and apparel over at brandedbills.com. Promo code BBPHNX up there in that corner on Kevin's screen, and that's going to get you 15% off your first order. Kevin Thomas, happy Tuesday. How we doing? How we living? Excited to talk some Arizona Wildcats basketball. I'll talk about last night's big Monday result in the Big 12. Massive game between Kansas and Texas Tech, and just kind of getting back to our tier rankings of the Big 12 conference.
Man, I'm excited for this one because, as you said, that game last night was absolute box office. It was must-see TV, even with Christian Anderson out, which we'll get to a little bit later in the show. But today, I feel very good. We are two busy men, you and I, Damon, with our Cardinals crew out at Super Bowl, but staying strong. Brayden Burries is on the Jerry West Award watch list now, and we're seeing Player of the Year Award watch list come out with him and Koa Peat and Jaden Bradley on it. Life is incredible as an Arizona Wildcats basketball fan and as an Arizona Wildcat in general. They announced recently that the McDonald's All-American game is going to be coming out to Phoenix, Damon. So maybe you and I could potentially sway one Cameron Williams to changing his commitment to Arizona, dare I say. Okay, that might get us in a little bit of trouble with some coaches. But I will say, the McDonald's All-American game coming out to Phoenix, I'm very excited for it. I will not be tampering on behalf of Arizona, but I wish I could.
I wish I could as well, Kevin. That would certainly, maybe go a long way. It's going to be hard for me to not say something to Cameron Williams. That's for sure. Kevin, you're going to have to muzzle me.
It's going to be like the side talk video. Hey, Cam Williams, don't you want to come play for the Cats?
I mean, how could you not want to play for Tommy Lloyd? That's how I'm going to be. I'm going to be walking past him and be like, you said no to Tommy Lloyd. Kevin's going to be like, dude, shut up. Elbow to the stomach. You're going to be looking at me, Kevin, as we get near Cameron Williams going, Damon, don't. And I'm going to be like, Kevin, I have to. You turned your back on this state. It's sad.
It is sad.
But yeah, so much fun. McDonald's All-American game coming to Phoenix. Going to be electric. But also, just, you say we're keeping busy around here at PHNX HQ3 here. And yeah, I mean, we certainly are with the Cardinals crew out there in San Francisco. But this is the bread and butter, Kevin. This is we're back home.
Yes,
indeed. Kick your feet up. This is what it means everything.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about it. Like you said, we do have our Big 12 tier rankings today updated, and we also have some marquee player discussion. Who are the guys that Damon and I are most excited to watch Arizona try to stop on the last 9-game stretch of their Big 12 season, all that and more. And I think, honestly, Damon, I want to kick off today's show by talking about that Kansas versus Texas Tech matchup before we get into our Big 12 tier rankings, because it was absolute – I was going to say Kharchenkov, but he wasn't involved last night. But it was absolute cinema is what it was at the end of that game. You had a lead up to it where it felt like in the first half, Darryn Peterson played well. But by his standards, it was a bit of a down night from a productivity sense. He wasn't getting his shot going the way that he maybe wanted it to in the first half. I saw Frankie Vision, if you guys know that account, like a film account and like a prospect account kind of vibe. He put out the highlights of Darryn Peterson in the first half, and treated it like it was a full game highlights. And at the bottom said, well, as we know, if he plays in the second half, anything after this is just double XP. And we got a whole bunch of double XP from Darryn Peterson last night, who hits 2 absolute NBA-level daggers. That's what you saw last night. That first one to tie the game, we're going to get to what the hell Texas Tech was doing on that inbound before that. But that 3 Darryn Peterson hit to end or to tie the game, leaning to his right off the catch, got a guard on his left side, got JT Toppin charging at him, shoots it over JT Toppin, nothing but net. It was incredible to watch Darryn Peterson heave up that shot. And you're thinking, wow, at this point, Texas Tech has blown it. But they still have a chance on the other end. KU is able to make sure that they do not score. And then also, Darryn Peterson again calls his own number and says, you know what? I got it, guys. Let's pack it up. Y'all can go starting the buses now. I'm going to go hit this shot and get us the hell out of Lubbock for the foreseeable future. Because I don't know if Darryn Peterson's ever going to go back to Lubbock, Texas, because he will never have to if the schedule works out the way I'm assuming it will, Damon. Last night's game was incredible. Unfortunately, we did not get Christian Anderson last night in that game. He was ruled out I don't know how close to tip-off. It felt like
not in the
close.
availability report.
Yeah, because he got a named not available this close to the game.
Dirty Texas Tech.
Apparently, sometime before warm-ups and tip-off, he contracted an illness, and they did not think that he could go in that game. They go to halftime. It's a very tight game between Kansas and Texas Tech, and we get back from the first half, and who's warming up? One Christian Anderson. He does not end up playing in this game, but it kind of was an interesting will they, won't they toss this sicko into the game to see what he can do, because he was dressed. He was on the bike. There were rumors of him getting into the game in the second half. It just did not happen. But Darryn Peterson certainly stole the show last night in Texas Tech.
Yeah, he did. That was pretty remarkable. And he had himself a good first half. He had himself a pretty solid first half, right? And then it was kind of that he had a bit of a lull in the second half for about 15 minutes until he came on late in the game. And then you saw, him basically be the difference maker at the end between Texas Tech and Kansas. And yeah, that first shot was incredible with 2 guys, hands in his face, basically off of a double clutch, it looked like. And it goes in. I mean, that's just a guy who's just finding a way to put the ball in the basket at that moment in the game, right? And then the next one, just like when he was leading into that shot, you're like, no way he can do this. That's 100% going in. Like, you're seeing the ball flow through the air, and you're like, that is 1000% going in. There's no chance that it's not. Darryn Peterson was he did steal the show last night, is a good way of saying it. Like, it was, it wasn't necessarily his best performance of the season, but then it became his loudest performance of the season, I think, all in the same night. And both of those things can be true. And that's the makings of a really good player, right? Like a guy who's just going to step up. I actually had a take on Darryn Peterson that I've kind of discussed with you a little bit, but I've kind of fully fleshed it out, and I want to run it by you and just kind of hear your thoughts on Darryn Peterson in kind of comparison to AJ Dybantsa. I would take AJ Dybantsa number 1 because I'm more certain that he's going to be like an all-star caliber type of player. And I think like a big wing that has, ball handling ability like that and can get to the free throw line, that is going to work at the NBA level. I'm confident in saying that. Darryn Peterson has a lot more question marks around him in regards to injuries, effort level, how much he really loves basketball, right? And I know that was like an Anthony Edwards thing, and that's become pretty stupid at this point. But, there's more question marks. And when you're taking a guy number 1 overall, you don't really want to have a question mark of like, is this going to end up biting us in the ass? I think Darryn Peterson's better than AJ Dybantsa.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's really particularly a discussion.
No.
But I do think that it makes it. I look at those players and I think, is it just safer to take AJ Dybantsa number 1 and just move on with it?
You know what I've learned from that take that you fully fleshed out there, Damon, is that if you listen to this podcast every day, like I know so many of you guys do, Arizona Wildcats faithful or not, if you combine me and Damon's 2 brains, you're going to know everything. You're going to know it all. Because, Damon, you and I were arguing, not like crazy arguments, but we were going back and forth a little bit in the summer about should Darryn Peterson be the number 1 player? And I was watching tape and I was like, Damon, honestly, this kid's a shot maker, kind of falling in love with what he's putting on tape here.
Yeah.
as much as I love what AJ Dybantsa is doing, are we sure that this guy's not better, right?
Yeah.
The better basketball player, the better hooper, right? And you would fire back and say, you're crazy, man. This AJ Dybantsa's kid, he's been the number one guy in his class since he was coming out of a diaper, right? Yeah. He's big, he's strong, he can make every shot Darryn Peterson can make for the most part. He's going to go number one. You're psycho. You're overthinking it, Kevin. But I think we're both right. Because what we've seen play out over the course of the season is that Darryn Peterson, better player, right? Like the more diverse, I guess, skill set potentially as well. And I think the guy that, like, if you're doing highlights, you're looking at Darryn Peterson tape like, oh my goodness, right? You're doing the same thing with AJ Dybantsa, but that I think we've seen that bear out. Where you're right, the AJ Dybantsa is the more maybe NBA prototypical style of guy. But I think Darryn Peterson, that boy's a dog. I know we talk about like
he scares me more. Like the fact that we have both of those guys left on the schedule, and we're going to talk about the players that are going to be playing the Arizona Wildcats and who we're most excited to see us match up against. But I'll straight up just preview it and say Darryn Peterson scares me more than Dybantsa at this point, especially after that first performance against Arizona.
Yeah, Burries Muse brings up the point that I was actually going to pivot to next, is that the whole business move and the agents of it all. Because I don't really honestly question how much Darryn Peterson loves playing hoop. Like, because I feel like you can't be that good at it and not love it to some extent. But I do think the people around him sure are doing their best to make it seem like he does not care about basketball, right? The agents, the associate ADs, the way they're handling these things, his injuries. And I get that, actually. I do. If you're the agent and your sweet pupil, the one that you could make your lifelong earnings off of, has pulled a hammy or has strained a calf or whatever it is, you do not want him risking nothing to play for no Kansas University. And Kansas University is incredible. I'm not saying that from a basketball fan standpoint.
He's making a fat check over there in Lawrence, though. That's
True.
the new age of college athletics, where it's like you're essentially a pro athlete, especially when you're that level of blue chip prospect. When I'm putting that kind of money on the table, I expect some sort of production out of it. I expect you to be playing in the second half of these games.
That's fair. But I just think if you're the agents, if you're the representative, whoever is handling him, right, as a prospect, you really don't care about what he does in college. You're getting the bag anyway, right? He's already going to be a top 3 pick regardless of how you cut it. And the pros is the ultimate goal. I know how much we all love college basketball. I know how much we all love Arizona basketball and Big 12 basketball. But the pros, for these guys on the court, the pros is the goal.
Yeah.
Unless you don't have pro prospects, then college can be the thing and you can make a bunch of money there, right? Fine. But for these guys like Darryn Peterson, right, he's not playing in the second half because someone's telling him not to, right? He comes out in that second half against Texas Tech. What happens? Killer. Absolute killer. So give me that guy, like in a one-to-one basketball court situation. Give me that guy over AJ Dybantsa, who is incredibly, immensely talented. Like, I'm not trying to demean him to put up Darryn Peterson, but what I do think is we saw it against Arizona is when you can force AJ Dybantsa to be uncomfortable, he becomes like more of a free throw machine. And I'm not going to call him a free throw merchant, but I will say a free throw machine where he generates so many free throws, but he's maybe not making the tough ones that you want him to make. That boy Darryn Peterson went off.
Dependent,
yeah,
for sure. Free throw dependent, no doubt about it.
That's probably a better way to put it.
He needs to get to the line at times, or else he's not really impacting the game at the level of which you would expect him to. But yeah, I think that you watch Darryn Peterson and yeah, he's so incredible. I would say that the differentiator between like a player that I want on my college basketball team though and a guy like that is like, yeah, that might be the end goal, but I feel like this Wildcats team is locked in on what we got going on in Tucson. Like, I think that they care about their pro aspirations, but like, you think if you gave Ivan Kharchenkov truth serum, he'd say that he's more focused on his NBA future than he is on playing Oklahoma State.
That's why he's at Arizona.
100%. And I think that's what differentiates good teams from great teams. And that's why Arizona is a great team, because it does feel like there is a collective goal in mind right now, and it is winning basketball games at this level. And, you can keep the guys that are like, I'm more worried about how I can get to the next level. And so, yeah, I think that's also a question mark with Peterson, where it's like, is he Like, how much does he love it? Because I know our guys love it, Kevin. You would have to drag their cold, dead bodies off the basketball court. Now, I said that about Dalton Johnson
Not so
and
fast, my friend.
Traden Stukes, but I'm going to say it again. And I'm going to believe it again, Kevin, and I will be hurt again if I have to be. But I just feel like that there's a different mentality with this Arizona Wildcats team right now than there is with maybe, what Darryn Peterson and Kansas got going on. And I think that as much as, they are upper echelon level talent and they are scary in that regard, no doubt about it. I do think that, yeah, that's what makes our team special and their team just merely very good.
And to really bring it back full circle, like to what Burries was saying in the chat, it does speak to the way that Tommy Lloyd recruits and the way that he wants to build his teams. Tommy Lloyd, for as much incredible talent as he's collected in Tucson over the last half decade of him being the head coach there, he's not really ever gone for the one and done guys, right? And I think like some of these other programs like Kansas, UNC, Duke to a different extent, because they're just kind of on a different playing field there. But like those schools, you do get the Darryn Petersons. Ordinarily, you would get the AJ Dybantsas, right? But that's not what Arizona's trying to build. Tommy Lloyd's trying to win national titles. He's trying to put guys in the league too. He's trying to develop guys. But he's trying to win, right? He's trying to win, build a team that wants to play together and win together. I think some of these other programs, it's more like talent acquisition. We'll figure it out later. And I think Tommy Lloyd wants to figure it out on the front end. We see it with his recruiting. It's usually crickets until the guy signs. Because Tommy Lloyd is not in the business of sending out flyers to every top 5-star in the country. He's sniping. He's not, just mowing, spray and pray. He's sniping. And I think that is kind of where you get this undefeated, balanced, deep roster of guys that just want to win and buy into the team because they know their best route to the pros is playing the longest, getting the most game on tape. How do you do that? Make sure your season ends on a win. Make sure you're one of the last teams playing. And to put great tape out there in high leverage situations. It's what Koa Peat said when our guy Saul Bookman, asked him, why do you choose Arizona outside of just being from Arizona? Why did you choose them? Because you could have chose Houston. You could have chose, let Blake Neiman tell it, ASU, right? But Arizona offered him a stage to perform on that is greater than these other programs. And Houston, in their defense, just played in the national championship and have been very deep in the tournament. But you get my point, right? Arizona, like a Houston, is trying to build teams that can win in March and give their players a stage, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. I want to shout out to our KU people here that we got in the chat. We got Land Taxer Memes. He says KU and Peterson are locked in, and also says that he thinks that there will be a 1-1 series split between the final two games that we have with Kansas left. And I think Kevin and I are maybe right there with you. Kevin did say undefeated yesterday, but
I don't think it's crazy to insinuate a split.
I think 1-1 split. I think that the game at Kansas might be the toughest game on the entire schedule remaining here. And so I certainly level with you in that regard. And I do think Kansas is a very, very good basketball team. Also, Pat Norton from CHGO up in the chat earlier, KU grad. Good to have all the Kansas fans here in the chat. But I wanted to ask about the Christian Anderson aspect a little bit more, Kevin, and kind of flesh that out with you. Does that impact how much you view or how you value this win significantly? Like if Christian Anderson was playing, how much more seriously are you taking the W?
It's a great question. I mean, if he was playing and KU still got the W, now I think it's like it's an incredible win. I think right now it's a substantial win on a substantial road site against a very good team.
For sure.
And I think, I was talking to Saul and Corey about this last night. If I was a Texas Tech fan, what would kill me the most about this win is you got awesome performances from your others in this game. Mm-hmm. And you kind of wasted it. Like, not knowing whether or not you had Christian Anderson coming into this game, right, as a player on that team probably does kind of mess with how you're looking at attacking this one, at least in the slightest bit. Because look at what LaJuan Watts was able to put together last night. What Atwell was able to do. You got a three from, I believe his name was Jazz Henderson. Jazz Henderson hits a three in that game. I think he had 8 points all year coming into the game. And he hits a big three in this game in the second half. And so it's like you got great performances from the bench in this game of Texas Tech, and you wasted it because, Damon, let's talk about that end of game scenario real quick, because we talk a lot about Arizona not being able to execute in inbounding scenarios and its potential to cost them in a big game. You saw that naked, bare ass, clear as day last night in that Texas Tech KU game, Damon. 61-58, 90 seconds left on the clock. I think it's Lawan Watts inbounding the ball with Petty standing at the free throw line and Toppin about at the elbow area, right? Toppin charges down to the right corner, right closest corner to you if you're watching on TV, to get the ball from Lawan Watts. But he stops like right at the restricted area, right? Mm-hmm. So Watts inbounds the ball, and JT Toppin catches it. Now, Watts, I don't know what his plan, like what his assignment was, but it looked like he was trying to like set a screen for Petty to go up court. But Toppin doesn't wait for it to develop. He just throws the ball back to Watts, who's no longer looking at JT Toppin. Hits him right in the back, goes right out of bounds. And then you have the Darryn Peterson three that ties it. And then you have the Darryn Peterson three that ends it. But from that one turnover, you kind of lost the game. You had it in hand. Up 3, at home, with the ball, 90 seconds left. If you get a bucket, KU is really, really in a tough spot there. But you turn it over in your backcourt off the inbounds, and it's from the hands of your best player. I was floored in that moment, Damon. So to answer your question, if Christian Anderson played in this game and they still won, I think that is by far the best win for KU this year, unless I'm forgetting something even crazier. But that's a big win. Christian Anderson not playing diminishes it a little bit, but I think the fashion in which you got it done, it almost equates, because the production Christian Anderson would have put out versus the production that Lawan Watts was able to supplant and some of the other guys were able to supplant, I feel like it kind of equals, but you never know with those end-of-game scenarios, having Christian Anderson in there to either inbound it or catch it, make a different decision. You never know. You never know.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. It's very, convoluted, the internal math you have to do on a situation like that, but definitely like Christian Anderson, it severely limits what Texas Tech wants to do, right? Because he is a part of probably the most dynamic duo in the conference, if not the entire country. And anytime that you're not going to have one of those two players, it's going to severely make an impact on your style of play and just, generally what, the role players are used to doing as well. But yeah, it's not as if their role players, didn't step up in a big way or didn't have decent performances to supplement that. It's just that, anytime you don't have Christian Anderson, it doesn't feel like you're at full strength. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly an interesting conversation, an interesting game. Kansas now goes ahead of Texas Tech in the Big 12 standings, which is big. That's what makes, I think, the Texas Tech win against Houston so massive, is because Texas Tech was never going to, in my opinion, win the conference. Like, I think that they're very similar to what they were last year, which is they are when it comes to like the true title contending, Big 12 title contending teams, they are one step right below them, right? And Arizona kind of was very similar to Texas Tech last year in that regard, whereas Houston was like solely alone at the top for the entire season. I think Texas Tech is a very, very good team, but they just never were going to go undefeated or one loss or two losses. They're always going to lose, 3+ games. And so that Houston loss to Texas Tech becomes massive for our reasons and gives us a big leg up in terms of the regular season title.
Yeah, like you said, that is the third loss now for Texas Tech on the year. And it kind of, like you said, it really hamstrings them, so to speak, in the Big 12 title race. A team that, honestly, I know you said that they're very similar to last year. I would love the chat's opinion on this because I'm not making a definitive statement, so let's get the conversation going a little bit. But they could be maybe worse, you could argue, than last year from a versatility standpoint. Their two top dogs got even better. Right, and you did get some better, like you got Lawan Watts coming in. You got some other guys that have improved as well.
Yeah,
but I think losing Darryn Williams and losing what you had with Toppin and Williams and losing that, I think almost makes you. We're talking about them like not having bench production, not having size. It makes you a little bit more predictable from an offensive standpoint, in my opinion, than when you had Williams last year. Who, I mean, I don't know. We see Lawan Watts trying to do a lot of the same stuff that Williams is doing, but he's not as good as Darryn Williams was for Texas Tech. So
how are you gonna get chain snatched by NC State if you're Texas Tech?
I mean,
aren't you guys Mr. Moneybags?
Yeah, but I guess maybe the Moneybags went to football, and then JT Toppin said, "I need a raise," and Christian Anderson, he's probably getting a
but
raise.
That's the thing about being Mr. Moneybags is it's unlimited. When you're an oil tycoon, I don't think that the difference between one Darryn Williams and one not Darryn Williams is that massive. If you truly love your school, at least
that's fair.
It's getting chain snatched by NC State is insane.
Yeah.
When you have all the money in the world.
Yeah. No, it is. Getting chain snatched by anybody in the ACC.
By Will Wade and an ACC opponent.
Oof.
Magic Johnson gif.
Michael Jordan gif.
But
anyway,
it's a verbal meme podcast too.
As you already know. But we do actually have our Big 12 tier rankings to get to, and let's get to that after our first break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast. Leave a like, stick around, and drink your water. Do not go anywhere. Honestly, Damon, the worst part about happy hour, at least at most places, is that it has to end at some point. But with our friends over at Pure Edibles and with their Mother Road collab that they're doing with that beautiful all-in-one that you see down at the bottom left of your screen, happy hour does not have to end. It can be happy hour all the time with Noble Road's new Tower Station IPA all-in-one. This offering really captures the crisp citrus and piney hops of Arizona's favorite IPA and combines it with that smooth THC twist that we all love so much. So if you're in Arizona, swing by select local dispensaries in the ad read, Damon, but it's over 130 dispensaries that dispense Pure Edibles. So if they don't got damn near all of them. So if they don't got the all-in-one Tower Station cart for you, go ahead and indulge in some Pure Edibles because they're not covered in sugar like some of their competitors. These are everything from candies to gummies to Starburst-like kicks, with their effects clearly labeled on the outside of the tin. So head to one of the over 130 dispensaries, check out that Tower Station IPA all-in-one, and check out our friends over at Pure Edibles across the Freedom State of Arizona.
You already know that Phoenix is one of the best sports cities in America. Arizona is one of the best sports states in the entire country. But this spring, it's about to raise that bar to an entirely new level, Kevin. For the first time ever, NASCAR and NTT IndyCar Series are racing at the same weekend at Phoenix Raceway. That's right, guys, the same weekend, and you want to get a front row seat to all of it. I've been out there for the NASCAR event, but I mean, this just sounds like it's the best of both worlds, right? You're getting both IndyCar and NASCAR at the same time, and it just makes for an all that much more electric weekend. Nothing delivers the intensity of a race weekend, whether it's the engines firing, the smell of the rubber, the crowd erupting as the field charges into turn one, the prizes, the games, the drinking, the family culture that they have out there. It's so much fun out there at Phoenix Raceway in the foothills of the Estrella Mountains. We've been out there doing some PHNX sports content with them in the past, and let me tell you, it's always such a great time when we're hanging out with our friends over at Phoenix Raceway. You get a hillside view of the race for ticket options. You can also get weekend packages that make planning easy. Witness 3 action-packed days of racing. You can get inside the field, you name it, for some camping options. All of the above, and all of those options are available, of course, at the link in our description below. So secure those seats and check out that link in our description.
Welcome on back to the AZ Wildcats podcast. Make sure you have left your like on today's show. If you haven't, I'll know. I will definitely know. I always know. But we do have our Big 12 tier rankings for today. Damon, is Texas Tech faltering? Is Houston still in the S tier? Is BYU deserving of being in the A tier? We have so many questions. So let's get into our Big 12 tier rankings for this week. Damon, where should we start? I have a hunch that we're going to go ahead and start with Utah this week. Get it out the way early. Get it out the week early.
Sure. Yeah, that's an easy one to start. D tier. Welcome to the D tier, Utah.
Wow.
You're staying home.
Welcome home, Utah. D tier. This is definitely where you belong. Moving on to Texas Tech. Now, Damon, you and I, we just discussed Texas Tech ad nauseum for quite some time there. Mm-hmm. Where are we going to place them this week?
I think Texas Tech is still an A-tier team. I mean, I think last week we were debating between whether or not they were S-tier, and then they lose a game at home, albeit, but to a team that has potentially the number one pick in the entire world on their team, who just went full takeover mode. I'm not going to dock them too many points to that, especially with Christian Anderson out. I think Texas Tech is absolutely still an A-tier team.
I agree with you, Damon. I think Texas Tech is still in that A tier, albeit maybe slipping a little bit from the very front of it. I think that this team is still a team that can compete in the Big 12 Conference and on any night could beat anybody. You have JT Toppin On most nights, you have Christian Anderson. We've seen what Lawan Watts is developing into. Atwell can really snipe it as well. So, yeah, I think Texas Tech is still an A-tier team in the Big 12 as of right now, Damon. Moving on to Colorado. We got the Colorado Buffaloes. And Tad, what's that on his face? It's a boil. They're still coming in the D tier for me, Damon. Do you disagree?
No, I don't. I mean, they're 3-6 overall. It's hard to really, be too pumped up about what Colorado has going on, especially when they took 6 L's in a row prior to their last win. Albeit their last win was a decent one, right? And so they lost to Texas Tech by 2, then they lose to Cincinnati by 9, then they lost to West Virginia by 11, then they lost to Kansas by 6, then they lost to UCF by 9, and then they lost to Iowa State on the road by 30. So outside of that Iowa State loss, most of those losses are fairly respectable, right? I mean, Cincinnati is not a good basketball team, and losing to them is not ideal, but West Virginia, they had a decent start to the year. Kansas, UCF, and Texas Tech all within single digits, I think is all a decently impressive slate, right? So it's not like they're straight up horrible. Then they beat TCU by 26, and that's a solid win for Colorado in my opinion. So I think they're at the top of the D tier, Kevin, but they are a D tier opponent.
I agree with you. We got Colorado in the D tier yet again this week, and I did want to ask you one more question on Texas Tech before we move on from them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Does the loss to Kansas impact your feeling about Texas Tech at all in the Big 12, like specifically in the Big 12 vacuum?
Does that
does it give you less confidence in them that they can beat anybody on any given night, like I said earlier?
No, because I don't think that they had Christian Anderson. And I think that our discussion previously has always been that, like, if Christian Anderson and JT Toppin are going to combine for 50 and and be efficient and get other people slightly involved, that they can essentially go toe to toe with anyone if those guys are playing their A game. So I don't think that changes much for me when they lose with Christian Anderson out, honestly.
That's fair, Damon. Moving on, we got BYU. BYU is an interesting case, in my opinion. We were talking about this yesterday on the show. They have not played the best level of talent on the other side, and when they have, they've kind of taken some losses. But I still think that this is an A-tier team, despite losing to Arizona and still coming back in that game, despite Tony Padilla's best efforts. This is an A-tier team still, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it matters to you or not, but I think Texas Tech should be ahead of BYU.
Yeah, it does matter to me, and I think we should have Texas Tech ahead of BYU in the A tier like we do there. BYU's
beaten absolutely nobody.
They haven't.
They've lost to Kansas. They've lost to Arizona. They lost to Texas Tech. They beat Clemson. They beat Miami. They beat Wisconsin, and they lost to UConn. And they beat Villanova. So their good wins right now are like Clemson, Villanova, and Wisconsin, essentially, are like their top 3 wins that they have. All of those being, of course, in the non-conference, none of them being in Big 12 play. It'd be like as if Arizona, because I think that Arizona got such a good start to the Big 12 schedule, and we were talking about that when it released of like, man, there's almost like a ramp if Arizona's playing good ball out of non-con for them to just like win this conference, because you could start off with like a 5-0, 6-0 slate before you start playing BYU and Kansas and all these really, really good opponents, right? And I think that gives you a good leg up on the rest of your competition to have a fast start. But it would be like as if Arizona had that fast start against all those bad teams, and then immediately when they started playing the good teams, they just lost all of those games. That's what BYU is essentially doing. I mean, they can beat Kansas State, they can beat ASU, they can beat Utah, they can beat TCU, they can beat Utah again. Congratulations.
Almost lose to Utah twice.
But none of those teams are that good. Kevin, honestly, I'll say it. I think, can we put them in the B tier?
Whoa. Wow. BYU B tier? I mean, honestly,
the BYU tier.
The BYB tier. I could get behind this. I think mostly because we've had such a bare B tier that I think we should really start utilizing it more as like you got to earn the A tier. You really do.
I agree.
The same way we've been making
What
it
have they
clear.
earned? What have they earned? They've earned a win against an ACC team that's mid as hell. They've earned a win against Wisconsin. That's cool. Number 23 Wisconsin. And they earned a win on a neutral floor against a Villanova squad that might make the tournament. Congratulations, BYU. You're in the B tier.
BYU in the B tier is not something I thought I'd be looking at today when I woke up this morning, but I think we're right. Like, I think if we're actually going to be utilizing these tiers the way we initially set out to do so, where the S tier is true title contenders, the A tier is true conference title contenders, and then maybe the B tier is just some really good teams, and then everything else after that is to different varying degrees of bad.
Yeah, I almost think that the top tier is the regular season title contenders, because I think the regular season, just given the fact that, it's like a Premier League season, right? It's like over the course of the year, teams are bound to, take some hits here and there, unless you're probably Houston and Arizona. And that's why those teams continue to be at the top, because those teams can continue to be the most, consistent about, their performances they put in on a regular basis. But we mentioned it. We want to get BYU in the B tier to give this team some company. It's UCF time, and that means we're back in the B tier here. UCF, solid team, tournament team. Kevin, I think that's fair to say at this point, right? UCF is a bona fide NCAA tournament team. 6-3 in the Big 12, 17-4 overall. Losses to Vanderbilt, losses to Oklahoma State, lost to Arizona, lost to Iowa State. I mean, they have, about as good of a resume as you could possibly have in this conference with the expectations that they had going into the year. They just came off a win against Texas Tech at home in the space game, which you never want to play them in the space game. No. They're a good team. UCF is a very good team.
They are a good team. I like UCF. I think UCF deserves to be ranked, as Sam Albert says in the chat. I think UCF is a ranked quality basketball team. I think they have ranked quality guys on that team. Themis Folks has been an absolute killer this season for UCF. So, yeah, I think the Knights deserve to be finally not alone in the B tier, but still behind BYU in said tier right now. Moving on.
And they do deserve to be ranked, Sam. I agree.
Yeah, they definitely do. They're doing a great job down there in Central Florida. Excuse me. That would be a huge faux pas if this was like...
That's the rival.
Yeah, that's crazy. I apologize. West Virginia, what are we doing? You're going
to get some real angry UCF fans in this chat, man. They got a rambunctious fan base.
Man, I don't want any smoke with no Knights. I don't want no smoke with no Knights. But West Virginia, where are we doing with the Mountaineers? I feel like this is still the best team in the C tier. Do you agree?
I do agree with that. They're 5-4 in the conference. They still hoist a winning record in the conference. They're coming off a loss against Baylor. I'll say it again. They're coming off a loss against Baylor.
Not ideal.
Not good.
Not ideal.
Not good. Baylor has had probably about as disastrous of a start as they could have possibly imagined, and they're probably not as bad as what they had shown at that point in the season, but that's still not a good loss to sustain, especially when you're at home, especially when it's by 10 points. I think West Virginia is a C-tier team just by the fact that, they have a winning record. So you have to kind of give them that courtesy, but they're not a good team.
I agree with you, Damon. Moving on, we got Oklahoma State, Arizona's next opponent coming up. What are we going to do with Steve Lutz's group? I think that this is still a C-tier team. I think that they are the second best team in the C tier, and I think they should be one behind West Virginia. Do you agree?
They beat Utah. They handled business against Utah. That's what you got to do. They were actually, that game, I told you, Kevin, when we were doing our Saturday show, I was like, have you seen this Utah-Oklahoma State line? Because it was an even spread. It was a pick 'em.
Yeah.
And I was like, Utah is horrific. How is Oklahoma State, who's pretty good, going to be in an even spread game, albeit, it was in Salt Lake, and that's a high elevation place to play. That didn't make any sense to me. They end up getting the job done by 12. I think Oklahoma State's okay in every sense of the word. Kind of like West Virginia, right? Like those are not good teams. They're also not bad teams. They are just very, very middling, mediocre teams. And so, yeah, I think we're a C category team on Oklahoma State for sure. C for Cowboys.
It's interesting, right? Because they lose to TCU on the 20th of January, and I still feel like I would take Oklahoma State in like a neutral site game against TCU, but I could be wrong because the thing that TCU has up on Oklahoma State is that TCU is the 27th most efficient defense in the country, but they can't put the ball into the basket. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State is the 62nd best offense in the country and the 84th best defense in the country. So they're a little bit more balanced, but not really elite at anything the way TCU is really good at defense. Do you think the TCU should be behind or ahead of Oklahoma State in the C tier? Let's just get TCU out the way now.
I think behind because they've just been so inconsistent. TCU has some bad losses, man. They really do. You're sitting there and you're like, what are you guys doing? How are you losing to Colorado by 26? How are you losing to Utah? You know?
Yeah.
Like those are the type of if those results, Kevin, were flipped in particular on TCU's schedule, I think we're looking at a team that is probably going to make the tournament this year.
Yeah.
But those losses are so bad that it'll probably preclude them from making it. Like they could have been like a 9 seed, an 8 seed, but instead they're probably not going to make it at all. I think that they're a C tier team. I just think that they're so hot and cold. Like they look decent in one night. They lose to BYU by 6 at BYU. They lose to Arizona in a game they were winning at one point in the second half, or at least it was very close, right? And they almost beat Kansas. They should have beat Kansas at Kansas. But then they have these horrible nightmare performances where you're like, okay, we can't respect them as a basketball program right now.
Yeah, and honestly, if you look at Oklahoma State's schedule, I feel like they're better than TCU, mostly because TCU is like their worst loss on the season. TCU is their worst loss, and outside of that, it's Oklahoma, which is comparable to TCU in terms of the loss. Texas Tech, Iowa State twice, and I guess Baylor is actually probably their worst loss.
Yeah,
Baylor is definitely their worst loss. Damn, how do you lose to Baylor, man?
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Letting Baylor put up 94. Oh my goodness.
Baylor is better than what their record probably says that they are, but that's still, you can't lose to a team that's like 1-6 in conference at the time or whatever Baylor was. That's unacceptable, right? Yeah. That's the type of thing that's going to be, game changing for your tournament discussion when the committee sits down at the end of the year. Because like those teams could be talked about in this conference with close to 500 records. But then they're losing games that they just absolutely unequivocally cannot lose to teams like Baylor.
Yeah.
Moving on here.
Next up, we got Iowa State. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about Iowa State, specifically in this very chat, about whether or not they deserve to be in that S tier. That's kind of been the conversation that went on yesterday at the end of yesterday's pod when we were doing our gauntlet gauge, seeing which teams we think Arizona must beat, should beat, and if they beat them, it's a statement maker. People wanted Iowa State in that title contender category. People wanted Iowa State in their elite level defense and their balanced roster and their 3 potential All-Americans to get in that conversation. I think that Iowa State, based on, look, man, it's tough when you lose to Cincinnati, right? They really should have one loss, and it really should just be to Kansas at this point. But I think that this is still an A-tier team, and I would put them ahead of Texas Tech at this period in time. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think they belong ahead of Texas Tech solely because Texas Tech has these last 2 losses, albeit to UCF and Kansas. So, I don't think that it's debilitating. I don't think that makes me feel worse about Texas Tech really as a team. I think they're still such a tough out. But, yeah, I think Iowa State, just given body of work at this point in the season, even though I think we've long been like on the train of I think Texas Tech is better than Iowa State. I think we're more impressed with Texas Tech than Iowa State. I think Iowa State just belongs ahead of them. You can't really argue otherwise.
Yeah, and I think Iowa State is in that conversation we were having about Texas Tech before they lost the game to Kansas about being as close to an S-tier team as you could be without being in the S-tier. Iowa State is quickly getting back into that kind of conversation after their back-to-back losses to practically start Big 12 play. I know you got West Virginia, Baylor, and Oklahoma State out the way, but the next actual teams that you played were Kansas, Cincinnati. You lost those. So I think that this is about as close of an S-tier team as you can get. Moving on, though, we got Cincinnati, Damon Dog, and not too much deliberation on this. Despite their defense, despite Baba Miller, this is the D-tier team, right?
Yeah, they're like TCU, but like a worse version, where like you just never know what you're getting out of Cincinnati. They could beat Iowa State. They could lose to ASU. They could, play a game against Houston. Then they could go lose to Houston by 21 in their next time that they play them. They just can't score the basketball. I have no respect for what they got going on, really. They're like the type of team that like they're good enough where they could catch you because they play like such a high level of defense, but they're just not going to really make any noise and not have a good season when it's all said and done. So, yeah, I think they're a D-tier team for sure.
To answer Andrew's question in the chat, who says TCU lost to Colorado by 26, how are they not in the D-tier? I think, now, pause, because I think this is ironic considering the comment and the way it's framed, but I think it's the fact that they still have that high-level defensive capability, right, that keeps them from being the D tier. And I know that Cincinnati's in there, but I don't know, man.
They're so bad at offense. They're
Yeah.
so bad at offense. TCU, the reason that TCU's not in D tier, and I agree, that's a debilitating loss. There were points of the season where we could look at TCU and say they look like a pretty darn good team.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe that was a while ago at this point, but I just think that they're a step above what I would consider to be a bad team, and the D tier is what our bad teams are. The C tier is what our like average to, you know, mid teams are. And then the B tier is good teams, the A tier is very good teams, and the S tier is national title contending teams. So it's you know, when you factor it out that way, I just think TCU belongs a little bit more in the mid grouping. I know they lost to Colorado, but Colorado is not too far off of being in there. We have Colorado as the top team in D for a reason, and it's because, you know, they're maybe a win or two away in a row from maybe pushing their way into a C category. Who knows?
That's fair. And I also think I believe in Jamie Dixon more as a coach than I do Wes Miller. I think that does kind of factor into this, because when you're talking about college teams, who's leading these college teams? I think it's really important when you're talking about that. And I have less faith in Wes Miller to get it done. I know the Iowa State game exists, but I don't know what to do with that. It's such a crazy outlier. I trust him more than I do, or I trust him less than I do Jamie Dixon.
What a terrible loss for Iowa State.
It's unbelievable.
It really is unbelievable.
How do you lose that? Like, how do you play Cincinnati for a full 40 and end up losing?
How do you let Cincinnati put up enough points to beat you in a basketball game? Like, they just can't score. There's a lid on the basket.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me that you could even allow. I mean, what did they allow here? 70 points?
Yeah.
They gave up.
Versus Iowa State, it was 79-70.
I mean, how do you give up 79 points to Cincinnati? That's diabolical, Kevin.
It really is.
It really is. Cincinnati sucks.
You know who else stinks?
ASU.
Arizona State. Read my mind, Damon. This is another D-tier team. We do not have to deliberate too much on it. Get your ass in the D-tier. Arizona State in the D-tier with the Buffs and the Bearcats and the Utes.
What do you make of Arizona State fans and their overrated chants directed at the Arizona Wildcats this past weekend, Kevin?
I think that went over just about as well as the explicit chant that got yelled at Darryn Peterson last night before he went off and hit two absolute daggers to end that game. And I will let you look that up on social media all on your own.
But I think that they were like doing it even when they knew they were going to lose.
No, that's fair.
They were just trying to say that we were overrated. I think because we've played two semi-close games with ASU when you're like, I guess, man, might be the two worst games of the season we've played.
Yeah, I mean, it really speaks to the lack of intelligence on that side of the rivalry, because
it's hard for them to understand what's happening on a basketball court. It makes sense.
Yes.
You can't blame them. They don't have too much practice.
Yes, because if they were to actually pull off that upset, well, I don't care. It's not really an upset. You said they were overrated. You said we stunk. So it's not really a big win for you, is it? Anyway, Arizona State in the D tier. Moving on. We got Arizona. And this is another S-tier team. They've been an S-tier team the whole year. They're going to continue to be an S-tier team. Now, this is where it gets interesting, though, Damon, because Arizona does come in the S-tier with Houston, but there are currently 6 ranked Big 12 teams in the top 25 of the AP. Arizona has 6 games against the other 5 ranked teams in that list. Is there a world where at the end of February, we are no longer looking at an S-tier Arizona?
I don't think so. But there is a world. I think that if you're saying if there's a possibility, yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, you play the hardest gauntlet of maybe any team in the country. And at the same time, while I'm saying that, like, I think that the first 6 or 7 games going into this year, it was a good ramp up into this Big 12 season and gives us a leg advantage of being like, okay, we're probably it's going to be ours to lose. Like, destiny is in the Arizona Wildcats' hands, which feels good when you're a fan, right? You don't want it to be, you need other teams to lose in order for your team to be able to get a championship. That being said, that does make it for where there's a stretch where you're just playing elite team after elite team, and you cannot let that snowball on you. You have to at least play 500 basketball at the absolute minimum, I would say, in those games, the 6 games that you're referring to in particular. So it's definitely, like, there's a world. I just don't think that we're living in it, Kevin. I think that Arizona, like, even with the gauntlet. I would be shocked if they don't have a winning record when it's all said and done out of this thing.
I agree with you. Like, I think that Arizona will still be an S tier team, but as we look at that tier maker, I was thinking to myself, like, there's a world where Arizona is like at the top of the A tier at the end of this, and Houston ends up being that lone S tier team. Maybe Kansas plays their way into the S tier, but Kansas is next on our list, Damon. We do have potentially a new spot for the Jayhawks after their big, massive road win over Texas Tech, and overall their level of play recently has been practically lights out. Honestly, you have one of the better defenses in the country. You have one of the better players in the country for Kansas. I think this is the top team on the A tier. Do you disagree?
I think Kansas is back, Kevin. I think I'm ready to officially say it. Kansas is back. The Big 12 was obviously Kansas's conference forever. That's not a news to anybody. They Bill Self has like 20 conference championships or something stupid like that. And that's in a conference that had respectable and high-level basketball opponents. It's not like it was just Kansas and bums. It's not like it's Duke in the ACC, just like every year going into the year being like, well, we know we're winning the conference, right? Like Kansas had to work for it, but they were still that good, that elite. You're looking at Kansas now. They're 12th in KenPom right now, Kevin. They are 8th in defensive rating. They're really damn good. They're really damn good. I think Kansas is absolutely a team to be reckoned with, and I think Arizona splits with them.
I will say this, Ken from the Ville in the chat says, Arizona will stay in the S tier, y'all tripping. For the record, I'm just bringing up the idea that you have 6 ranked opponents in your next 9 games coming up in the Big 12 Conference. One of them is on the road at Fog Allen. One of them is on the road at Houston, and there is a world where they drop a couple of those, and we're not talking about an undefeated Arizona basketball team, which I think would enter the conversation for them either dropping behind Houston or whatnot. But if you listen to yesterday's show, I'm predicting 9-0 in our last 9 games, Mr. Ken from the Ville. So I feel like if anyone can ask the question of is there a world where it's not the way I predicted it, it's me, because I'm predicting them to go undefeated in the last 9 games.
Just broaching the topic, brother. Just broaching the topic.
No, yeah.
Yeah, let's not get this twisted. Kevin asked a question, and I said that I would be shocked if we didn't have a winning record out of that stretch of 6 games when it was all said and done. Kevin has predicted an undefeated record. So no one on this podcast is sitting up here being negative. No one's tripping. We're chilling.
My shoes are tied. For the record.
My shoes are very much tied.
But yeah, no. Thank you for tuning in, by the way, Ken from the Ville. Not trying to come at you, but I just wanted to set the record straight that this podcast, we're not doubting the Arizona Wildcats' capability to get it done.
In fact, he just posed the question for me to just be able to, he lobbed it for me to just be able to Blake Griffin style slam it home and just say Koa Peat style.
Yeah.
And just say, yeah, you know what? The Wildcats are going to stay in the S tier no matter what.
Literally. Next up, we got Baylor. This is another D-tier team, in my opinion, Damon. Baylor, despite that W we discussed earlier, I just don't believe in Scott Drew's group to get it done. And now, if I could admit some bias here, Damon, I think that Baylor could go undefeated the rest of the year, and I might drop them in these rankings. You got James Najee on the squad. You went to the old man home and went and got an old man to come play with the kids. I don't respect that, Scott Drew. I had a lot of respect for you coming into this year. Out the window. You're a D-tier program right now. That's just the way it is. Do you disagree?
I think we might need to make another tier below has a G League player on their team. And maybe we go Baylor in that tier all by themselves like they belong, right? But yeah, Baylor is, again, they've had a disaster nightmare start to this season. They're probably better than what their initial Big 12 record was suggesting. They've done a little bit better as of recently. If you look at, their schedule and kind of just how things have played out, they're 12-9 overall. They beat West Virginia. I guess not really that much better because they lost to Cincinnati not that long ago. Baylor sucks.
Yeah,
Put them in the D tier.
Again,
D for Scott Drew. What on earth is going on in Waco? They got that nice new arena. They won a national championship a few years ago, and then they've fallen off of a goddamn cliff.
Free Tunde, man. Free Yesufu until Yesufu free.
Max, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with putting BYU in the G League tier. Absolutely.
I'd be cool with that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Welcome to the G League tier. It's the bottom of the bottom. Bottom of the barrel.
We could just turn the D tier into the D League tier. because we could bring that back. I know they were like, well, we don't want it to be the D League and make people
I think
think
we go a G tier. It's a G tier for sure,
wow.
if anything.
I love it. But moving on to our last team, and quite frankly, certainly least team on the tier rankings is K-State and Jerome Tang. Welcome to the bottom of our tier list. They stink, and they will continue to stink like a Wildcat that has not had a bath. Jerome Tang.
They're horrible. Jerome Tang sucks. Kansas State is a nightmare. PJ Haggerty, I'm sure he's sitting there. He cannot believe that that's the program that he invested his time in his last college basketball season into.
And then the check cashes, and he's right back in. Back in.
That's fair. But yeah, they're a disaster. There's honestly, like, when you look at this, there's a lot more bad Big 12 teams than like maybe we probably would have anticipated going into this year. Like, I think Cincinnati I thought would be mediocre. Kansas State I thought would be mediocre. Baylor I thought would be mediocre to maybe a little bit above mediocre, like maybe a B tier team. And then, I was listening to my boy Kevin on UCF and Oklahoma State being like, yeah, those teams are solid. They're doing their thing. Obviously the like top 6 teams there are all pretty, they are what they are, right? But, everybody knew those teams were what they were going into the season. But, yeah, I think that I thought there would be a little bit more of a middling pack here, but it's just mostly bottom tier.
I agree with you, Damon. And Jervis says in the chat, here's the thing. You guys have so many teams in the D tier. Do you still consider the Big 12 the best conference? And my answer is yes. Because I think when we're doing this tier ranking, it's all relative, right? Like, it's all relative to other Big 12 schools. We're not grading ASU compared to the Big Sky, right? Because they might actually contend in the Big Sky Conference or the Summit League or whatnot, but it's all relative to the Big 12, right? So, like, for example, what's Cincinnati, right? In the ACC, probably middling, with even regardless of how poorly they can score the ball. But I think some of these lesser Big 12 teams are still like middle table, top half of the table in some of these lesser power conferences, in my opinion. That's why I still think the Big 12 is the best, because we don't have an F tier for a reason. There really are no garbage programs in the Big 12. Even K-State, who truly stinks, has like PJ Haggerty on it, right? They have like a talented player who they're paying a lot of money to come play for them. So I think the Big 12 is still the best conference, especially when you consider the top end is so incredibly good. But I'm open to hearing, like, if you think that the SEC or the Big Ten or whatever has like a better bottom end, we can talk about like Georgia Tech versus like some of these other teams in the Big 12. We can talk about like some of the lesser teams in the ACC and the SEC versus the lesser teams in the Big 12, because without having looked at it too in depth, I think I'm probably going to end up taking some of these Big 12 schools over some of those lesser schools from the ACC and the Big 10 and the SEC.
Yeah, I agree with that still. I definitely do. I just think that it ended up being where maybe the teams at the top are almost so good that it diminishes what you even can do. The room for error on being on one of the bottom tier teams is so small. You can't lose to the Cincinnatis and Baylors of the world if you expect to be a tournament team, right?
We got BYU in the B tier. Like, BYU is going to have a top 3 pick in the draft. They have one of the best coaches, most promising coaches in the conference. Like, they have Richie Saunders, who went off for 30 at Fog Allen the other day. Like, BYU being in the B tier, I think, is all you need to see to know that this is grading on a curve, if there ever was a curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly. And I absolutely didn't push for that for reasons that are maybe trying to engagement farm some BYU fans into getting upset. Totally not. I would never do that.
Beat somebody, BYU. If you want to be in the A tier, S tier, beat somebody. Earlier in the year.
That's my thought process.
Earlier in the year, I would have called you crazy for suggesting them being a B tier team because they hadn't really done anything to not be in the A or S tier team, right? Pardon me. But you're thinking, okay, they're 16-1. One loss to Connecticut at the Garden by 2. No harm in that, right? But then the only really good teams they've played after that, they've lost to, right? The only top, the only top 30 KenPom teams that they have played since Connecticut, they have lost to. I'll give them Clemson because Clemson is literally 32. So, right. I just don't think that BYU has proven that they need to stay in the upper 2 tiers. they were given every chance to. And I think the losses to Arizona, the losses to Texas Tech, and the loss to Kansas really kind of ruined that. But they can still get back up into it. They have Houston, they have Arizona, Iowa State, UCF, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, West Virginia, as well as Baylor and Colorado to end their season as well. So they can get back up into that ARS tier if they really, really play their ass off. But right now, I think they got a B-tier performance they're putting together.
Yeah, and as Kobe says, they're good losses, to UConn, Arizona, Kansas, all very like comeback type losses where they made it close and it looks respectable on paper. But if you really truly watch the games, they're being outclassed by those teams on the basketball court. So yeah, I mean, it's, and they needed Darryn Peterson to be sitting out for that one to be kind of made a thing against Kansas as well. So, and Tony Padilla against Arizona. Let's not forget that. That's a big, big factor. Whenever Tony Padilla is reffing a BYU Arizona game, he's going to make his mark, I said that, Kevin, and I wish I said this on the post-game show, but when he called that Jaden Bradley offensive foul call on the out-of-bounds play, I said that Tony practiced that one in the mirror.
It looked like he did.
Like before the game, like he's in the ref locker room staring at himself in the mirror going, he's like practice. He's like, should I go a little bit more vertical with it? Or like, what do we think? Like what's going to get the best, what's going to have the most aura when they watch that back in slow motion on the final end of season mixtape that they make in the Big 12, right? Because Tony Padilla will absolutely be the headliner of such highlight reel. But yeah, I thought that I was just like, that dude definitely practiced that one in the mirror on the way in.
No, he did. And that we practice our ad reads in the mirror every morning. We're going to get to our last break here on the AZ Wildcats pod. Leave a like, stick around, drink your water, do not go anywhere. We got Bryce James red shirt update on the other side of this. The only number to call if you have been in an accident and have a serious injury is 602-783-8841. And when you call that number, you will reach the coolest law team in the game, the husband and wife law team, who, if you've been on social media recently, you see that they'll do anything to get their name out there. It is very, very funny what they got going on. I know Damon saw it. They got Mark Breyer dressed up in football pads, filming ads. It was absolutely incredible, doing his morning meetings in the pads that are under his button-up shirt. Hilarious stuff. Check out their social media, but also they're serious about the law side of their team as well. Serious injury, wrongful death specialists. And in the state of Arizona, the state bar is only certified less than 1% of all lawyers in specialists in injury and wrongful death. Well, those two in the bottom left and their law team are specialists in serious injury and wrongful death litigation, and you can reach them at any time for any reason. If you want to tell them you think Kharchenkov is going to cause some serious injury to KU and Kansas, then call the husband and wife law team. You can reach them about it. If you've had a serious injury, call them first at 602-783-8841 or visit their link in our show notes below. Let them know the AZ Wildcats podcast sent you over.
Kevin, I know whose number I'm calling at the Waste Management Phoenix Open this weekend. It is the Don.
Dial up the Don.
Of course. Who doesn't love the Don, man? And of course, it's because that's some top shelf level tequila. Everybody knows it. When the Don Julio bottle comes out, that's when serious business starts happening. And the Waste Management Phoenix Open is about as serious as it can possibly get. Don Julio is going to elevate that Waste Management weekend to an entirely new level. Starts today, Kevin. I don't know if you can tell on the thing. It says right there, February 3rd through 8th. It's the 3rd right now. February 3rd through the rest of this weekend on Sunday. Waste Management Phoenix Open in town. Electric vibes. So much fun. And if you're planning to make it out to the tournament this year, there is no one else that you should be elevating your experience with other than Don Julio and their tequila. They're going to be at 2 separate holes at this Waste Management Phoenix Open. Kevin, on the 12th hole, you can get margaritas on draft, take a photo with the Don Julio truck, and get a complimentary water, which is so important out there at the WMPO. And then, of course, there is also a 5th hole entrance at the Fairmont for a personalization station, product samplings, and elevated Don Julio cocktails. So much fun out there with our friends at Don Julio. Make sure that you guys check out everything that Don Julio and the Don has to offer out there for you guys enjoying the tournament this year. And make sure that you tell them that PHNX Sports sent you. You might even see some PHNX crew members out there as well. So if you're planning on attending the tournament this year, make sure to visit our friends at Don Julio across the venue and tell them PHNX sent you.
Welcome on back to the AZ Wildcats podcast. It's your boys, Kevin and Damon, talking a little bit about Bryce James. Now, we were going to do our whole, which matchups are you most excited to see? I know we pushed it from yesterday to today. We're going to push it from today to tomorrow because the Big 12 tier rankings, there was too much to talk about, and we're already an hour deep, and we have actual updates to give you. This was Tommy Lloyd talking about Bryce James at the beginning of the season, and in relation to his red shirt, he said, Bryce and I have had a lot of conversations figured out this year. Redshirting is a possibility, and the reason I say that is because I believe in Bryce. If you don't believe in somebody, why would you spend extra resources or extra time on that person? Now, this is Tommy Lloyd via Chancellor Johnson's Twitter today. Bryce has made huge progress. I have a real strong belief that Bryce will be a contributor at Arizona in the near future. I feel like I've been called crazy multiple times on social media, in the chat, whatnot, for saying that I think that Bryce James can be a contributor at the University of Arizona playing men's basketball at some point, whether it's next year, the year after next. I think he has that level of capability in him. His shooting, right, his ability to have the game IQ in his head, I think he can contribute. Now, can he be a star? In my opinion, no, I don't think he has that in his bag. But I do think like an ADO role, for example, I think totally suits Bryce James in the future of his basketball career, like the shooter off the bench who, if he's playing decent defense, gets a little bit of extra minutes that day. But I do think that it's interesting that Tommy Lloyd has now come out and said that he still has a strong belief that Bryce James will be a contributor at Arizona in the near future. It doesn't sound like it's a 3-year plan. It sounds like it's a next year plan. Is that how you're reading it as well?
Yeah, I think that is always kind of been what the designated plan for Bryce James has been. I also kind of want to believe it when I see it, if that makes sense. Like it's not that I want to, root against Bryce James, or I don't think that it's a possibility that he can contribute to this team, but I do somewhat feel like I need to see it tangibly on the court before I start truly believing in it, right? Because right now, you have a complete unknown. The guy has only played against Embry-Riddle, right? And that's all we've seen of him essentially the entire time, the red-blue game and Embry-Riddle. So yeah, I need to see a little bit more from Bryce James before I'm like, yeah, he's a rotation piece in this program's future, especially when you're talking about this program is up there with the elites right now. I mean, Tommy Lloyd is maybe the best coach in the country. You expect to be in and around the top 10 year in and year out, I think, as long as Tommy Lloyd is your coach, right? And that's the goal. That's the task at hand. Can Bryce James factor into a top 10 team? Who knows? I think that remains to be seen, but it's certainly a possibility. I think he just hit that growth spurt in his last year of high school. Like that, he's not going to be fully ready to go with, in terms of just being developed with his body, I think, going into that first year of being a freshman, especially when he wasn't like that blue chip level prospect to begin with. So I think you got to almost give him time to acclimate. He's got a good shot on him. Maybe he could factor in as a 3-and-D player down the road. Yeah,
and I do think that you also have to remember that Tommy Lloyd has not yet filled out his next year's roster. You don't want to write off the idea of Bryce James being a rotational piece for you next year when you don't have your other rotational pieces. You might end up needing Bryce James minutes next year. If it's 10 minutes, if it's 12 minutes, you might need a couple minutes from Bryce James next year, and you don't want specifically the Bryce James guy to be, does Tommy Lloyd really believe in me? I don't know if Tommy Lloyd really believes in me. You have to maintain these conversations throughout his time at the school, and you have to make sure that Bryce still is on the same page about that plan. I think that Tommy Lloyd is keeping his options open. I think he's keeping the potential of Bryce James' development open, and I think it's a good idea for him as well, because you also want Bryce James selling other elite cats on the idea of coming to play with him next year.
100%. I think
and hopping on stream with his dad and playing 2K and all this other stuff, right? Like, you have to remember that's part of this too. So if Tommy Lloyd can keep Bryce James from transferring, and if Tommy Lloyd can keep Bryce James on roster and on payroll, so to speak, you have a great recruiting chip piece, you have a great marketing chip piece, and hell, you might even have a 3-and-D guy in a year and a half. Who knows?
Connections to Clutch Sports as well. Like there's a numerous amount of things that
Genesis Smith and who was it, Stooks or Johnson?
Johnson.
Yeah. Both now clutch athletes as well, so.
Does that make them friends or enemies?
They're still
in the
friends.
Circumstance of those players in particular,
of course they're still friends.
Given that they were probably advised by their future agents to be sitting out of the bowl game.
Considering Clutch has helped us put together this basketball roster, they are friends, brother. They are friends. Maybe that one specific agent that handles those two guys, whatever, maybe they're not a friend of the football program. But I think in general, friend of this Block A are Clutch agency for sure.
I hope so, Kevin. I hope so. I hope this is a fruitful relationship for many years to come. And I think, keeping Bryce James around certainly benefits Arizona. There's no question about that.
1,000%. But that is all we have for today. Tomorrow, we don't have a show tomorrow. Yeah, we don't. But Damon and I will be here tomorrow.
We will be here.
But we will not be on this show tomorrow. You can catch us. That's where the brain got stuck there. You can catch us Thursday. You can catch me on Southwest Bias Thursday.
It's
Damon
all
on Southwest Bias tomorrow. The PHNX channel presented by Kevin and Damon this week. But no, in all seriousness, off tomorrow. You can check if you didn't get our full Big 12 tier rankings. We'll drop those as a VOD tomorrow. So if anyone missed that, don't feel like you need to do anything, stress out. We'll have that for you tomorrow in lieu of our show. Back Thursday, 2 p.m., McHale Madness at 7 p.m. And then you already know, Friday, 2 p.m. And then post game for that Oklahoma State game as well. So, yes, let's have another great second half of the week. And let's get out of here, Damon.
Absolutely. Like Kevin said, we are off tomorrow on a Wednesday. We are doing PHNX D-backs tomorrow, both me and Kevin. So if you guys want to tune in, support the boys on that, feel free to. There's always an ounce of Arizona Wildcats, that gets talked about when Kevin and Damon take over the
if there's
D-backs
news,
podcast. 100%.
Just tune into D-backs and we'll turn it into the Wildcats pod. We'll just flip the
100%.
branding live on the show.
No doubt about it. And of course, we'll be back live Thursday, Friday, pregame and postgame on Saturday. Thank you guys so much for watching this one. You can follow me at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. You can follow my guy Kevin at KevoPost. That's KEVOPOSTS. And you can follow us at PHNX_Wildcats on all social except for TikTok, where we're at AZ Wildcats Pod. Appreciate everybody for watching this one. Like Kevin said, we'll be back on Thursday. But in the meantime, peace out. Bear down.
And go Cats. College basketball is fun, but it's so much more. That's the wrong pod. See you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.